So today I'm going to make some, well, like a bolognese mix, but it's going to end up being lasagna. But I just wanted to talk through the ingredients a little bit first and explain some things. Now I've been making spaghetti bolognese for a long time for my son, but it probably isn't a traditional spaghetti bolognese. I just want to explain why, and also that I use the same mix that I make for a spaghetti bolognese for a lasagna as well. So I'm going to apologise now to all Italians where these meals originated from, because this probably isn't what you would class as a spaghetti bolognese mix or a lasagna mix. But definitely inspired by those, but created in my own way as well, for me and my son. So first of all, I want to just explain the mincemeat. So obviously this is fairly expensive mincemeat that I've got here. It definitely isn't the mincemeat that I've always used. Actually, when I was raising my son as a single mum growing up, whether I was on benefits or I was not earning very much money, you know, I obviously bought the meat that I could afford. And obviously now, I mean, I still don't have loads of money, but also I've realised that I'm not prepared to, I'd rather spend more on better quality meat and food than on other things. So I've just changed some of my priorities as well. So I've got some mincemeat, and obviously you can see that it's half a packet because I've used half of it for something else and then popped it in the freezer. So that's always a good thing to do as well, to make sure that you're just using what you need and not just using it because it's there. Now the tomatoes, I am going to use this tomato paste today, but only because it's almost going out of date, so it needs to be used up. I think it is actually my son's, because I don't ever really buy that. So I would normally use just like a tin of chopped tomatoes in this, but because that one's going out of date, I need to use it, so that's why that's there as well. And then when it comes to the lasagna sheets, again, this is probably the one that I would have normally used, which isn't very expensive, but this time I'm going to use this one. So it is just a bit kind of softer, just cooks a bit quicker, and I just wanted to try it to see if it tasted any different, so that's the one I'm going to use today. But yeah, it doesn't mean that you can't use the cheaper versions if you can't afford the other versions. And then this is oregano, and actually it is from Greece, but because someone bought it for me as a gift. But you can just get oregano from the shop as well, or actually it's probably even better if you've got space to grow it, and then you can dry it and use that as well. So I have got some mincemeat, some garlic. I don't know why, I don't seem to have much garlic today. Sometimes I have loads of garlic, sometimes I have not enough. Anyway, so a little bit of garlic, some onion, some mushrooms and some courgette. Now, this is the bit where I think probably courgette doesn't belong in a traditional spaghetti bolognese or lasagna, but the reason it's got courgette in it is because all the time when my son was growing up, I wanted to make sure that he had plenty of vegetables. And what I realised was that courgette was first of all, it was quite cheap. It's quite readily available in the UK. There's quite a lot of them for, you know, quite a large time of the year. It wasn't too expensive. So that was the first reason. But also I realised that if I put courgette into things like spaghetti bolognese or into curry or into chili, that he didn't, you know, he would happily eat more vegetables. He wouldn't really kind of notice them as something that he didn't want to eat or didn't really like the taste of, because they would just taste of whatever sauce it was that I was making or the food that they were in. So that's why you might be wondering why courgette is part of my spaghetti bolognese, part of my lasagna mix, but that's why, because I was all for trying to make tasty meals that were also nutritious for my son, so that he could grow up to be as healthy as he could, and also not just to be healthy but to have good eating habits, and actually that is how it turned out. He's now 24, he's very good at cooking, and although I do have to say, I'm going to be honest, he doesn't put courgette in his chili, and I don't think he puts it in his spaghetti bolognese sauce either, but you never know, maybe he will when he has children, I don't know. So I will stop recording for a second, but then I'll get on with the chopping and the preparing. Okay, so first we're going to chop our vegetables, and I think with any of these videos I've tried to do them in as much realistic time as possible. I don't always film every little bit of it, but I do try so that people can realise that yes, it does take some time to cook from scratch, but maybe not as long as you think it does. And also that it takes practice the more you cook, the quicker you get at it. But it's not necessarily about being quick. I do actually just quite enjoy it. Now, I do want to say that even though I'm only using half a pack of mincemeat, which is probably about 250 grams, before when my son was living at home all the time, and I was like working clinically, so I was working in the hospital. I definitely used to do more batch cooking, so I used to cook on a bigger scale. So I would cook, I actually used to cook spaghetti bolognese and chili and curry all on the same day, and then I would put it in the freezer for the week ahead. And I think that's what kind of got me through. Now I'm probably a bit more creative in my cooking, and actually I don't actually cook. I don't cook spaghetti bolognese or chili very often now. My son probably makes the chili more often than I do when he's at home. But actually I'm making these because me and my son are moving on with the next phases of our life. So he won't be at home for as much time, as long, because it's, he's 24 and he's getting on with the next bit of his life. So we're just enjoying making food that we used to enjoy eating when he was younger. So I'm making a smaller portion, a smaller version today. I grew up with 8 other siblings, so I grew up in a busy household, where we didn't have much choice over what we were eating. My mum definitely cooked big meals, she definitely cooked from scratch all the time. And obviously with that many children, there's a lot to do and a lot to cook, especially because some of us a lot of them were vegetarian as well. So but I'm practicing cooking for less now. It has taken me a while. I think probably when I was cooking for my son when he was younger, that's why everything went in the freezer, because I was so used to helping prepare meals for so many. So I just tried to cut the courgette up fairly small. I don't think I used to cut it this small because I didn't have much time to think or consider things. But yeah. And if you haven't got children yet, it's a good idea to practice cooking, because then you'll have a wider variety of meals that you can cook for them. Like my son, definitely, if he has children, they'll definitely have a whole ensemble of, I think that's not the right word, but anyway, they'll have a whole variety of food, different types of meals that they can enjoy from his cooking or his baking. I'm going to put a little bit more than half of the courgette in, but I won't do the whole 1.5, that's a bit too much. Although I'm not how much I like a courgette. I'm not going to put 1.5 courgettes in this. So I'll just probably a little bit over half of what I'm putting in. I'll just prepare all this, won't take long. And as I said, I do enjoy cooking. I do quite enjoy the calmness of it. So for those of you that have watched any or more than one of my videos, you'll probably notice that I'm often in my dressing gown at this point, because it's quite early in the morning. So it's before I start work, and I just find it's quite calm to not to just prepare food at this time, but I find it easier to record as well at this time. And the house is nice and quiet. But I'll obviously finish prepping it later on, so I'm just going to make the sauce now, and then I'll cook the lasagna later when I've finished work. But so whereas before I would have done batch cooking, I think probably now I kind of more do different timed cooking. So I'll cook half of it in the morning and then finish it off before dinner. And I think even when I did used to cook dinner, because obviously I didn't always batch cook everything, but I did try to make meals that they could be from scratch to the table in about half an hour. So even when I make this from scratch to table, it probably doesn't take much longer than half an hour to cook. The spaghetti bolognese, lasagna obviously takes longer to cook in the oven, but the spaghetti bolognese, the chili and the curry, they didn't often take more than half an hour. So even if there wasn't any in the freezer, there was still plenty it still didn't take very long for me to actually cook it from scratch. So yeah. And actually, I'm not even a massive fan of mushrooms either, but that's another thing that I felt kind of went quite nicely in these types of meals. And actually, they are quite good for you. Yeah, I don't know, I read somewhere, I don't know how true it is, but I read that if you put mushrooms in the sunshine, they absorb vitamin D and then they keep it in as well. So if you're somewhere sunny, you put your mushrooms out in the morning, that will absorb a bit of vitamin D. And then you can get some extra added vitamin D into your food as well in the evening. More for a bit of vitamin D and sunshine, whether it's in your mushrooms or out in the morning sun. Okay, so that's all the vegetables prepped, and then we can get on with the cooking. Okay, so in the pan I've just got a little bit of olive oil. Obviously you can use whatever oil you want. I tend to use olive oil, but just a little bit. It's a bit more expensive, so don't worry if you can't. Also, depending on how fatty your mincemeat is, you might not need very much oil at all, because mincemeat can be quite fatty, and it's good to obviously drain some of that off. So, but I'll just put a little bit in the pan just so that it doesn't stick as well and ruin the pan. So I'm just going to put the mincemeat in. And I will just take you with me while I wash my hands, just because it's important to wash the meat off your hands, at least rinse it, so that you're not contaminating food. I can't find my favourite spoon, never mind, I'll use a different one. I just wanted to breaking that mincemeat up. It's a little bit noisy, but obviously that's the joy of cooking. I just want to mix that around so that it can get nice and hot. I'll just turn it down a little bit so it doesn't burn. And then I'm also going to, at this point, pop in the onions as well. So I put about half an onion, because I'm not making very much this morning. So if I was making a big batch, I'd obviously put in at least an onion, a whole one. And I'm also putting the garlic in there as well. Obviously people have different preferences of when they put onion and garlic and things in, but I put it in at this point just so that it can kind of get its flavour and also be cooked at a high heat, because sometimes when you put the other vegetables in, it doesn't cook quite as well. So yeah, so I'll just cook that for a few minutes and let the onion and the meat combine. I don't think this mincemeat is too fatty, but if I might drain a bit of it off, a bit of the fat, and once it's cooked a bit more, I'll just see how fatty it is. But you don't want loads of fat left in the pan, otherwise it makes your lasagna really fatty and greasy, and no one wants a fatty, greasy lasagna. It's never nice. I did have one in a restaurant once and I was not very impressed. It was really not very nice. It's sort of just oozing fat and grease. So just try and drain it off once it's all kind of cooked down. So we'll just leave that to cook for a couple of minutes. Okay, so this has been cooking probably for maybe another 3 minutes since I stopped recording that bit. As you can see, it's all nice and brown now. The onion is all getting a bit softer and all nice and cooked. Then I'm just going to put in the courgette. I did drain a little bit of the fat off. There wasn't loads, but I do think it's useful to drain some of that off. And again, if you're cooking for children, it's sometimes a good way to just create meals that are a little bit healthier, is to drain some of that saturated fat off, especially if you're using mincemeat that's got high levels of fat in it. So we'll pop the courgette in. We'll just put the courgette in a bit before the mushrooms, just so that they can, because it takes a bit longer to cook. The mushrooms really don't take long to cook at all. They can go in at the end or towards the end. And as I say, like, this is, today I'm making lasagna with this, but I would also use the same recipe for spaghetti bolognese as well, so you can use it for whatever you like. And I think that's the other thing as well about meals, like it probably isn't, obviously it's not, I've already said it's not a traditional lasagna, it's not a traditional spaghetti bolognese, and actually later on you'll see that I don't even put white sauce in my lasagna because I just put cheese, because I kind of felt like as my son was growing up it was just a way of also not adding kind of more layers of saturated fat to his food that weren't kind of always necessary. And I probably, because I was only 18 when I had him, and I think my mum didn't used to make white sauce and things like that, so I probably just didn't have a recipe. And although I think I probably did buy a jar once or twice, actually I realised that it probably wasn't that good for us. So I just stopped. I just didn't do it. And also I think because it was the type of lasagna inspired meal that I'd made, actually I enjoyed it just with the cheese as well. So obviously not saying cheese doesn't have saturated fat, obviously it does. But yeah, so you'll see that I think with any of my cooking it's probably they're inspired from different countries or from different types of traditional meals, but they aren't obviously in keeping with the true recipes. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's about adapting and creating recipes that you enjoy, and also that are healthy and able to, also not just that, it's about what ingredients you've got available to you as well, what your budget is, what ingredients grow naturally in your own country, or what's available. I know in the UK we have so many different types of fruit and vegetables that they're not really grown in the UK. And I definitely am trying now to be more conscious of like which ones grow in which countries and where do I find them, where do I find the best versions of them. But yeah, so the courgette is cooked for a couple of minutes there. We'll just add the mushrooms as well. And as I say, like, this does obviously take time. It's probably taking me a bit longer than normal just because I'm recording as well. But I feel like you can probably do this in maybe 45 minutes if you're not used to cooking. Maybe half an hour if you are. Maybe a little bit less. And obviously I'm doing it in 2 parts, so as I say, I'll cook the rest of it later. But it just also means that by doing this in the morning when I've got energy before I've spent the day working, and kind of using up my energy on work or other bits and pieces, or on thinking about life, it means that I've obviously taken time to cook and committed to trying to eat a bit healthier. There's quite a lot going on in my life at the minute, so I've definitely done a fair amount of emotional eating the last few weeks. But at the minute I feel like I'm in a place where, yeah, I've got some energy to get up and prep, do a bit more cooking, and hopefully that will help regulate my emotions and things like that, and help give me the energy to get through the next few weeks, where there'll also be a lot of things going on. So hopefully we'll enjoy this later together. So my son is actually at home at the minute, so yeah. Right, just going to get the tomato paste. So then we just pour that in, so once the mushrooms have had a bit of time to cook, we're just going to pour this in. Now as I say, I don't normally use this, but I'm using it because it's going out of date, and I really also don't like wasting food. I really don't like wasting food. I don't like throwing it away. And actually this is probably a little bit out of date already, but I'm making a judgment that actually it's fine. And it's still going to be fine. And that is that. So I'll just give that a mix. Probably a bit too tomatoey, if I'm going to be honest. I probably didn't need to put all of that sauce in. But actually with the lasagna it will dry up a little bit when it goes in the oven as well. So it's probably not a bad thing for it to be a bit more tomatoey than not. But yeah, I probably could have added a bit more ingredients to absorb some of that tomato, or vice versa. Then I'm just going to sprinkle some oregano on top. It's good to leave putting the herbs in till the end. Now I must be careful not to use all this oregano because my son uses this oregano when he makes focaccia. So he probably won't be overly happy that I'm using the last bit of the nice oregano. But I'm sure he'll get over it once he's eating lasagna and enjoying it. And actually, to be honest, he won't really mind. And maybe I'll get him some more next time I visit somewhere. And we used to grow oregano, but I don't have the outdoor space at the minute. So yeah, I will add a bit more oregano later on as well, but just for now I'll put a little bit in. Now you can add salt. I sometimes add salt, but actually for now I'm not going to, because I'll probably add a bit before I do the tomato or vice versa. Then I'm just going to sprinkle some oregano on top. It's good to leave putting the herbs in till the end. Now I must be careful not to use all this oregano because my son uses this oregano when he makes focaccia. So he probably won't be overly happy that I'm using the last bit of the nice oregano. But I'm sure he'll get over it once he's eating lasagna and enjoying it. And actually, to be honest, he won't really mind. And maybe I'll get him some more next time I visit somewhere. And we used to grow oregano, but I don't have the outdoor space at the minute. So yeah, I will add a bit more oregano later on as well, but just for now I'll put a little bit in. Now you can add salt. I sometimes add salt, but actually for now I'm not going to, because I'll probably add a bit before I put it into the lasagna. But also I think when he was growing up I didn't want to add salt to the food, so I always added salt to my dinner when I was eating it. But obviously for children it's not good for them to have so much salt. So yeah, so just obviously use your judgment on that. And that is that. So I will love you and leave you for now, and I will make another bit of the recording later on after I've worked and we're going to make the lasagna. Alright, have a good day. Bye. Hello everyone, so I'm back after working for the rest of the day, and I'm just going to put my lasagna together. So I have reheated the sauce, and now I'm going to pop it in the tray. So I'm just using a loaf tin as my tray, because I'm just making this for two of us, so there's no need to have a great big tray. You can obviously use whatever tray you want, but I'm using this one. So I'm just going to put a layer of the sauce. Then I'm going to put, if I can get it out of the box, a lasagna sheet, and then another layer. This is why it's good to do the cooking in the morning, the cooking part of this, because it has been a very long day and I am very tired. So I'm glad that I can just pop this in here, pop it in the oven. You can, and then it'll be done. You can like break a little bit of a lasagna sheet if it doesn't quite fit and pop it like that as well. I sometimes do that. Now I'm going to probably I think I'll use all of the mixture. I'll see. If not, I might save a little bit to have spaghetti bolognese with tomorrow instead. But I might need all of it. There, and get another one. It really doesn't take very long at all. It's really not very complicated. And then just thinking whether to do all of it, whether to do another pasta sheet. It doesn't really matter how many layers you have, it's really up to you. But it's good to kind of leave a little bit and make sure it's quite juicy. So yeah, I think I'll probably maybe just put one more on top like that, and then I'm just going to pour the rest of that over there like that. And now I did explain this morning that I don't do white sauce in my lasagnas, just because I never really had it as a child, and I never really bothered doing it when my son was growing up. And it's just my way of doing it. Obviously everybody has their own way, so do it as you like. Now I've already grated the cheese, so I'm just going to put this over the top I've probably grated too much, but it's nice to have a cheesy lasagna at the end of a long and tiring day. So today I will be having this with some little roasted potatoes that are baked in olive oil, and also a Greek salad as well, which I will make in a second. So we'll pop the links to those videos in the description as well, so you can see if you want to make all of the different parts of it or not. Okay, that's it. So it's going to go in the oven probably at about 180 degrees, and it should take probably about 45 minutes to an hour, but we'll just test it along the way and see, make sure the lasagna sheets are cooked inside, and that's it.